Okay, so now we ended that one because that was a Salem moment of realizing what really was from my encounter at 5:29:21 at 1:30 a.m. Actually at around 12 o'clock, right at high noon. And
High
then,
noon.
well,
Well, yes,
yeah,
I get what you're saying.
but so it was off topic. Well, what wasn't off topic was off what I had deemed to be topic, and that's what the Spirit does for me. So, but it all connects, and that's the amazing part of this is how it does connect. So we're going back to Locus Ceruleus and what it means. So we're on page 25. So this is now going out of the intermission of Supreme Being, and but again, we were still talking about the Shamayim. So go over to, please, to Beneficus, the benevolent file that I gave you, because we're talking about the law of the Shamayim. And I didn't put it on yours, but again, for anyone that wants to know, because if you're the completed circle of the Supreme Being, then by the law of the Shamayim, we are constituted, which constitution means to be joined as.
Right.
So, but you can only be joined as the constitution, fully constituted, by a system of measure of locus point, right? So it's kum, right? Shamayim. The stand of sovereignty is the measure within you to become the kum, the stand, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you become, again, this is why we're 1, 2, 1, the stand, is because from one came two, out of two comes one again.
And isn't that again Adam?
Adam, yes, is strong as 1, 2, 1.
Is Adam, mankind.
Mankind.
So it's the stand of mankind.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so it's not coincidence that was chosen, but now it's even filling itself up more through revelation as we journey through it. But I was told to say, what is the name? 1, 2, 1, the stand.
Mm-hmm.
So from this, we have the Shamayim, which is...
and that was before you connected it to Adam.
No, I knew that was 1, 2, 1 again, but again, it was just seeing it over and over again. But
from one, the division came into two, bringing it back into.
But it morphs again. Well, we don't need to get into the name, but because it's Abba too, right?
Right.
One Aleph.
Aleph, Bet, Aleph.
Right.
So one being the letter Aleph, two being Bet, Aleph being one.
Right. Aleph, Bet,
and
Aleph.
Through the
one builds one.
Yes, totally see
or
it.
One Bet Tav, one. One built love is one measure.
And in Aramaic, Abba means source and origin.
Right.
Father, but it also means source and origin.
So I put this in here because, again, you don't have it in yours, but Shamayim, it's interesting that Shamayim 8064 is actually in Aramaic. It has a noon on it. So Shamayim is a Yod Mem, but in Aramaic it's a Yod Noon. And it's interesting that what we are going into, and this is what the Spirit showed me this morning, we're going into the 8th day. By celestial law of the lofty, by the Supreme Being, by the intention of the law of the Shamayim, by becoming the constitution, we cross over to the 8th day of rest.
Totally comprehend that.
And you can see that 8 is really the magical. It's a magical 8. It's why we see the 8 ball. It's
right, and also that is the 8th letter, which is Chai or Chet. It is the number for life.
Right.
So crossing over to life out of death.
Right. And that's exactly what the 8th day is. You've moved over to the 8th day. You've gone into the rest, and that's where Shmini Yeseret, right? It's the 8th day.
Right.
After the 7th day, everything was completed. The 8th day now is where we become, right? Mikra Kodesh, right? This is the gathering, right? The 8th day is the day where there should be a holy gathering. The gathering of the whole and the complete is on the 8th day. Yeah. And I'm speaking that prophetically, is that I feel very strongly that we are about to have an 8th day encounter.
Yeah, I see that. And even the word in there, Mikra Kodesh. Mm-hmm. Mikra means to call out.
Yeah, these are the called out ones, completed and whole.
The holy ones that are set apart, that are not common. Totally see that.
Now, I put this in here because I was talking about maritime law, because by the law of the Shamayim is the law of the heavens.
Right.
And this is where we get the word for admiral. Because admiral is, in the Hebrew, we can see it, but we can go down to that admiral is really the maritime law, but it means commander and chieftain. So you've become the commandments. The admiral is the word for really admire, admirable. So now we have what is admirable. It means worthy of admiration, wonderful, awe-inspiring, marvelous. So one who is the commandment is admirable, as they have become a wondrous sign. Wonder is one word. The O-U-S means as a wonder, wonderful. You've been filled up as wonderful. A sign and a wonder.
Right. You
are now admiral. This is the admiral of the law of the Shamayim, a commander-in-chief. And you can see in its own definition of admire. You have it in the verb. Yes, you don't have it highlighted, but there you go. Yes, wonderful. And now I want to put this in there. So now we have a charge that was given. So lay charge upon, give charge, command, and order to constitute, because now you're the constitution. The constitution of what? Right? So now we have this word, Sava.
Zava. Which is the root of Zavaot.
So now we're talking about, so now you're the deep. Because remember, locus ceruleus. Ceruleus means also heaven, but it also means the sea.
Right.
Ceruleus,
which is also known as the deep.
The deep. So now you have the deep connected to, right?
I like this because it's Zava that has a lamed on the inside.
Right.
So through inside instruction, you become deep.
Right. You're pierced on the inside, so now you become, and now we can go down a little bit further.
Because that's the waters.
So now you become arisen out of the abyss.
Right. Right.
So now you become, right?
Right. And really coming out is the hunting and chasing and desire to connect to your heart, the instructions on the inside while you're in the waters of chaos to get you to the waters of shalom, which is the door out, because it will reveal to you how to get out.
Right. And so this deep is what we were sharing earlier on the last segment,
hence the
at the beginning,
firstlings,
talking about the cry. This is the outcry.
Yeah. How interesting is that? Because they found life on the inside.
This is the cry of the deep.
So that which was separated is actually that which that they ended up finding life.
Do you remember the poem, The War Horses? The cry from the deep comes the groan and the wail, realigning the head.
Right.
And breaking off the tail. So you finish the walk to realign the head. From the deep comes the groan and the wail.
Which is right here.
Right there. And so these are those, this is the outcry that you realize that we have been living in death. We're being really suppressed. Well, not by choice. We don't have to. Suppression is just by choice. We are freely given, therefore we freely sojourn. We see it. We've chosen to remove ourselves based on what we have seen and deemed to be true. And we are enacting the law of the Shamayim, so we may be arisen into the standard measure.
Totally get it. So those who cry out are the ones who see that separation was an illusion.
Yeah.
Because head also means to fence or to separate,
right.
But it's also a window. Window into what? Revelation. Right. Because there's a hay here. So it's the revelation of the illusion of separation, and that's when you find life.
Yeah. So go down a little further, because we're talking about you bringing up the hunter. So now, because I just use these peripherals. So on the other side of 4867 command, we have castle. But now we have a mem on the prefix.
And we have General Zod.
General Zod, right. So now we have, an adversary. Mother is the adversary. She will show you how to rise to become, right?
Right, exactly, because her whole job is to raise you up from being an adolescent, a child, one who is still nursing, an infant, a child, Ein Vav Lamed, which is also another definition for the word that they've said is evil.
Mm-hmm.
So evil is those who do harm and hurt that are children. So mother's job as the adversarial component is to pierce your heart.
Yes.
To help you grow up.
Put
you on the path where you're going to hunt and journey and chase after that which is going to pierce your heart and open the door for you.
Right. And now we have the word hunt in here. So these are the huntsmen.
Yeah.
Right. Because they've been caught in the net. The fishermen are no longer. Now come the huntsmen. And this is all based on the journey to become the desire being pierced. You are become the door.
So since this is the root of Zadi.
Yes.
Right? This is the root of Zadi.
This is the righteous path.
Then that means that you would have a yod on the suffix. So by that which you hunt and chase gives you power from the Father.
You become.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You become pierced as center.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah.
And then how interesting is this, that you caught that which was hunting you, right? To catch. And now you have the power on the inside.
Right.
Because you caught the journey and you went through the door.
Right.
You caught it.
Yeah. You actually ambushed yourself.
And then when you become a mother in the earth, you are the adversarial.
Yes. Yeah, that's
why people. Zod.
That's right, and that's why people say that. Well, when the people come on, when the light workers come on the platform or the stage as light, they're going to be seen as an adversary, because they are, but not in the adversary component in the lesser nature as what we have deemed to be called devil or evil. These are an adversarial friend, because a really good friend knows what the purpose of becoming is, and he guards and protects those that it loves and who he loves or she loves, so they too would become the intended measure. So it's a measure fully balanced, fully equated, fully completed in the intention, adjudicated in mercy through the friction and and the seeking of resolve. So it knows the process of the journey.
So this adversarial component is one who stands upon the waters of chaos. The waters of chaos is the system of duality.
Yes.
This is one who overstands duality.
Yes.
And because they do, they actually become an adversarial component to the system of duality because they're no longer part of it. They found their way out as the firstlings of the matrix.
Because that's what this file is based off.
Truth is truth. There is no various forms of truth. There is one truth.
Yep.
And truth is connected to light.
Yep.
And there is no shadow or dimming of light. Light is truth. Truth is love.
Yep.
Love, light. Light, love is truth.
Yep.
Okay, got connecting here. That's awesome.
Okay.
Thank you.
So now let's go back. So I just wanted to show the law of the Shamayim is why we have maritime law and how it's connected still. And I thought, okay, so now we can go back to the file. But this is an outcry that is within us. This is how, because we realize that we've climbed the rampart to become the lofty. We're now a supreme being. And now that we know that, we're crying for the establishment of the recognition. We cry out in the frequency of resolve to say, Father, by the law, it says, if we see it in the revelation of his true intention of innocence, that we may become that. Removing all pride and arrogance and ego, I simply see it for what it is, and we release the enactment thereof. The frequency of Anaknu.
Right. I am, we are.
Right. Yep. I am, we are the leaves of the tree.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. So let's go back, please, to the carry file that I sent to you. And on page 25. I think you're right there.
Yep.
Okay, cool. And we can see that that Ezra 6:9, I have it in another file. We'll have to go through that because that's based off of
I already see a whole huge amazing thing here. I always do.
There is so many first occurrences. Every word in this Ezra 6-9, I would say 80+% of the words in this verse, the first occurrence is in Ezra 6:9. Every word. And I go like, this is crazy. I mean, the word for sun in Aramaic, the first occurrence, Ezra 6:9. All these words. So it's a very powerful.
And that's amazing because if it's the first occurrence, firstborn, first law of first mention, because Ezra is in Aramaic.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
And so a ram or a room is a citadel.
Yes.
That which lifts you up.
The lofty.
So the lofty place. So it's all connected.
So let's just go a little further. So I have this in another file. I have all Ezra 6:9 done. It's already been extrapolated out as a teaching, but that's another time. But let's just look at this because we're still focused on Ceruleus. So now, because we just need to go a little further. So now the word sky, often translated as ceruleum in cognate of Latin.
Is cognate of Latin scutum or scutum,
means shield. Okay. Now that's the celestial. This is the celestial, and it means it's actually called the place of the chisel. Really interesting that the word for
the sculptor's chisel.
The sculptor's chisel, right? Now think of what we're talking about here. That the chisel is based on a law that was engrafted or graved in or etched into a stone into your heart. That's based on locus ceruleus that is in you. So now we have a measure outside and a measure inside, as what the Bible has stated. And here the same word for ceruleum means shield, but it's called the sculptor's chisel by its orienteering or its celestial abode in the sky. It's called the sculptor's chisel.
And that totally makes sense because if we're becoming in being the supreme being, we are in the place and age where we are cutting off that which no longer serves us to be sculpted.
Well, we're realizing that it's not on stone anymore. It's engraved on your heart. And so, yes, but it's just, when I see this stuff.
Instructions, authority on the inside.
Right.
Yep.
I just bring it in because it's like, wow, how could you not
I know.
connect?
I mean, but that's how spirit connects.
So
the spirit shows, look at this, look at this.
So locus ceruleus, again, we're talking about kum shamayim, and now we're talking about the sky of the heaven, right?
Right.
So now we have ceruleum there. I've just taken that right out of what it's saying.
Right.
Right. And it's also talking about whole. And then we're talking about this word. And so now, because the circle is whole, right? Intact. So now you're talking about ceruleum, a point that you're whole intact, and this is the basis and the premises of the compass.
And this is also the whole meaning to be whole would be Caelum.
Where we're going. So let's go down. Because now in this word, see that word at the very oskin, the K-A is in the blue,
Yeah.
highlighted in the blue. We're going to look at this word that's connected to Ceruleum, and so now we're going into the name. So from this word, it's a girl's name, Hebrew or Hawaiian, and it means the laurel crown.
And see, totally get that, because Kaf Lamed, in Aramaic is bride and crown.
Well, let's just walk it through so people can comprehend. So now,
I'm only saying that because I've shared it a lot in teachings about that we are all the bride. It's just some of us don't know it yet.
So now we're complicated as healed and whole as one. So now we have this word for crown and wreath, right? Because the laurel means the wreath of the head.
Right. That encompasses.
So here's this name that's connected to Cerilius.
Right.
And now we have, right, all encompassing.
Right.
Because you are the compass rose.
A circlet around the head.
Right. So now it's connected to, so now we have this, the ayin tet resh he.
So it's basically saying here, you're going to see the purpose of the wrestle on the inside that will raise your head, and you will be revealed as those who are crowned.
Right. This is your crown.
I mean, really.
The revelation is your crown.
Right.
The revelation of knowing and seeing by choice, by choosing the head and the tail of choice tet, through the wrestle of the mud, through the wrestle of walking in the earth, you have pulled out, you've scratched out of the earth a crown.
Which was a picture that you saw a long time ago.
You're going to have to scratch and dig at it.
But it's being revealed.
But it's being revealed.
As you dig.
As you dig. There's treasures in the earth. Dig. So now we have kala, to shut up and to withhold. Now, this is not a negative. This is based off of, when you see the word in here, it says to stretch, and this is my string theory. Lineages line completes as the all-encompassed circle. The string theory of the horizontal connects as the two are connected as the purpose. So the measuring, the plumb line, even though it's a plumb line of vertical, it is still released in the earth as a horizontal line.
Which would then also be called an experience in time.
Experience of purpose, journeying in love. You are stretched thin in the process to connect this. So this is my string theory of saying lineages line connects as the all-encompassed circle.
Totally see it.
And we see in this word that it's from this kala, right? That it's from 10.
Well, I would just say one of the things about withholding and shutting up, it's already saying that you need to grasp a hold of the teachings in the way of one. So the resolve to this word is in the letters itself. So that which is being shut from you and withheld from you will be revealed if you grasp a hold of the instructions that teach you the way of one.
Yeah. And in this word for restrain and withhold, I put it in here because when you go do the research on this, it really talks about abstain, to withhold. It really, when it talks about withholding, it's really, really talking about abstinence and restraining yourself from something else. And so it's really your stretch and your ingathering your process is going to be based on abstinence. It's going to be based on knowing how to abstain and what to abstain from. But
that makes sense. That totally makes sense, because if you're being instructed in the way of one, you're abstaining from everything that would make you divided. Yes. I mean, you can take it into the lesser narrative of abstaining from sex and things like that, and abstaining from alcohol and abstaining from this. But when you look at it spiritually,
it's funny you would say that. So it's funny you would say that, because you're talking about really. So let's make a point here with that. So let's just go down a little bit further, and then we're going to talk about abstinence in the form of what the church has defined it as. So this whole word right here, kala, to withhold, and then we're looking at the first occurrence in Genesis 8:2, and the sky was restrained, right? And we're talking about, Cerilius was restrained. So even in this verse, it's talking about there was a cord stretched out. Really, something was laid out. Something was restrained, or there was a removal from. Something was held, right? And so it's just connecting with this verse. This is the first occurrence of this 3607, to shut up, to restrain, to withhold, restricted. Something was held back. So now we can go down to here. We're talking about the Strong's 3606 and the 3615 called the whole, the finished, the completed, right?
Yep.
Now this is more just...
And that's for Hebrew.
That's from Hebrew.
And then the Aramaic, it shifts over to be bride and crown.
Right. So now I put in here, so a crown of laurels, because we're talking about that name that was from...
right, the Hawaiian or the Hebrew, right. The Kala.
Kala. So I just... because there's
or Kalia.
This is why Caesar, he wore bay leaves. This is why they wore this, because this was the laurel or the crown.
And they had it made out of gold.
They had it dipped in gold.
Yep.
Right, because this is the golden measure. Right. So this is just in there. We can just blow through this. But the reason I want to get to this, so I wanted
a status of victory, or a symbol of status or victory.
Right.
Victory and status.
So go down one more. Because we're talking about becoming whole. Now, this is from, we can talk about the celebs.
Yeah.
Because that's the whole, and that's from up above. So we go up above to connect that. Go find the green. It's right in the name as well. So go back up to where that Hawaiian name was. Not too far, just far enough. So I brought it down from, no, you got to go back up, sorry.
Further
up. Go back.
I was looking for green.
Because I want to connect, yeah, it was just, you'll see it here in a second.
There it
is. Okay.
Got it.
Latin. Okay.
Okay.
So let's bring that back down now to this topic. You should be on right after that, Laura. This is just information. Again, you're going through my notes. So again, I whirlwind out, but now I'm trying to reel it back in. So there it is right there. Now this is where we get celibacy from. What you just said, from separation. Now I put in here, this is just a question. Could it be that the church enacted a possible improper definition? Because the word...
would that be what you call a...
Yes.
The thing that I don't like? What is
rhetorical.
Rhetorical.
Yes, it's a rhetorical question. Could it be?
Hey, but I'm getting better at recognizing
but I have to be careful not to go into duality myself. I'm just simply stating facts to say, because now we have something...
Well, what you're saying is, could you possibly consider this? Could you consider the possibility that this may be?
Because this word is from chaffinch. It's talking about the shaft, or to shake off an outer skin, and the finch is based on the finch, and the finch is called the wren. The cry of the bird removes the shaft. When you go look this up and you go into the word where it says the finch there, the shaft and the finch, where this comes from, the finch goes to the root, the wren.
Which is the ringing cry.
The ringing cry removes the shaft. So the wheat is exposed.
Or the barley.
Or the barley, right. So this word right here is saying, now, this is why I find this amazing. I was like, oh my goodness, because the word for celibacy, we can read this through a little bit. It says in the 1660s, the state of being unmarried, right? Voluntary
abstain.
Right. From marriage. Right.
Yes. Abstention, is that how you pronounce that? Abstention, probably. Abstention from marriage.
Right. But perhaps, but that's not really what it's, I'm going like, maybe they got the wrong, again, they enacted the lesser message or the lesser frequency from the lesser standing. They didn't realize that the word, it doesn't mean, it means to abstain. Something has been removed, to abstain from something. It's got nothing to do with sex at all. Yet we wonder why that they can't.
So in other words, it's just a spiritual meaning of being separate.
Right. It's talking about unboundness. And so when we break this down a little further, we can then break down the word. It's talking that you are limitless.
Of course. Having or appearing to have no limits.
So in the true definition, unbound is the freedom of whole living. But they've taken it and they've made it this construct, and they called it church or religion. And so celibacy...
Well, and religion means to return to bondage.
So in its own definition, celibacy, alone, living. That's what celibacy means in its own... It means whole. You are whole. It's got nothing to do with separating yourself from a partner. When we come together, my lack, you carry. Your lack, I carry. Together we have found that the process of being unbound, unlimited, We are without limit. We are completely made whole in our uniqueness. Together, we're able to journey as two to become one again. One to one.
So really, this whole process, I mean, in a nutshell, it's about our spiritual maturation.
It's your spiritual maturation.
Because even the thought of marriage, in binding in marriage, is really meant to tame the beast ego. Right?
Yeah.
Because you are becoming committed and bound to a partner that is meant to raise you up. And once you get both into the raised up position and you no longer need one another because you've been raised up, then you don't need to be bound anymore.
You're unbounded.
You're limitless.
You're free. You're free.
No, I totally get that. I totally get that.
When I say elephant, we go with picture of an elephant, right? So when I say celibacy, we go that, oh, I see a black shirt with a white collar. I'm thinking of a picture of a father that is in the earth that has enacted a role based on a definition that has been regurgitated to say this is what this does.
And technically, in entering in what they did, they were never raised up in the way they needed to, and hence why we have all the abuses that happen within that system.
It's something that's unsustainable because we're meant to have partners.
To help shape us.
We are held to a contract, a covenant, a constitution that enjoins us. Constitute means to be enjoined.
Right.
Mother and father are the representation of what celibacy is.
Because they've been separated.
Right. By joining, right, together, they have become the definition of stretching, to withhold, right? They are restraining from becoming the intention. This is what's been held up. How it expresses itself is through the ren, the cry of knowing what you're to become.
So in other words, mother and father have become divided because we are divided. And in the processes of us becoming the supreme being, they are once united with us.
Yes.
As the supreme being.
As the supreme being.
Whoa. Yeah. Yep, see that, felt that.
Yep. So it's again a lofty topic.
So that also goes into shedding of our earth suits.
Good segue. Let's go into so what you just said. Let's go into a locus point on the locus point. And I want you should be on page go to page 11, please. And you should come up to locus ceruleus.
Mm-hmm.
So it says, completion stand is as the dark blue violet. The name locus ceruleus, right? The spot. Tequila, violet, the blue. Tav, Kaf, Lamed, Tav. We just said what is completed, right?
Right, the Kaf Lamed.
So here's the Kaf Lamed completed, and it means blue, right?
Right.
And it means, again, so now we have the blue spot. We can go right through. So now it's from the root 7827, which means an ingredient of holy incense.
So the holy incense that's on the table, or the table of incense right before the Holy of Holies.
Can you read can you read that perhaps?
Perhaps the peeling off by concussion of sound.
Right. Off the husk comes from the cry.
Right.
And so now can you just one occurrence of this, can you go down a little further?
Well, look at this. Shin Tav right here,
yes.
That means foundation. The foundation of life instruction on the inside.
Right. Has to be. The walk on the horizon. Right?
Of course, we've already talked about the roar, the lion's roar. I can already tell you there's going to be people that are already going to connect to this because they have been connecting to it.
And so now you're at the end, completed, the finish, the accomplished. So you have Kal-El in the heart.
And so Kali is to fashion up and to equip with weaponry on the inside.
Yes. And then we're going to go into, but we're not finished with, we got to go back. Wow. But I just want, because I have to follow your segues going like, okay, because I already have the files lined up going like, but I love it when you, okay, this is the way it should flow, because now we can connect blue to the blue spot, to Tekalit within us. The lion,
to the completion, the lion roar.
The lion's roar, the frequency of the wren, because I'll tell you, the lion and the wren and really the Bennu bird is the crane. The Bennu bird is the crane, and it's directly connected to Anu, and it's the god of perpetuity.
Which is also connected to Thoth.
Which is connected to Thoth. It's connected.
They're
connected. Everything's connected to everything. But yes, absolutely. So in this word, we have the journey of the blue to become the lion, the characteristic of a fierce roar that would peel off with the percussion of a sound. A holy ingredient is within you. What is it? It's called the oil of awakening. It's the oil through the
oil of the lamp that makes you shine bright as light.
Right.
Which ties in the wise and foolish virgin's parable.
You're now completed, which completion, we'll go into that later, but that means a circle. You are now the circle, completed and whole.
And you will be revealed as such.
You are revealed as such. You're now accomplished.
Well, and really, that is connecting to our higher self.
Right.
It's like they've all become one.
Right.
Like bringing it in with the horizontal and the vertical and uniting it is what completes us. That's what the revelation is.
So now go back. Yeah.
You are complete and whole.
So now go back to the...
Because you've collapsed everything into one.
Go back to...
Supreme being.
Because remember, you can only do this if you're healed and whole.
That's right.
So now we have to define what whole is, because we just showed what whole is. So you're back to the carry file.
Okay.
Unbound.
Yep.
So again, we're talking about that celibacy is not what celibacy is. Now define health, and because now health, you've now healed the head wound.
Well, we were sharing this the other day about the health, and it had to do with holy and sacred.
Right.
And to heal.
Right.
So in other words, if you're holy, that means you are healed, as opposed to those who are common, who are not.
Absolutely.
And sickness actually comes from thinking that we're separated.
Right.
That's what's a head wound.
Yeah, we can't remember. And so, yes, and remember, the whole journey of malevolent really just means we're going to talk about the ill fig. Maleficus is talking about ill fig. Beneficus means the healed whole fig. The fig tree cannot produce its intention because it doesn't know what the intention is. There is a legal standard to say to become and transact of light, you must know the legal transaction of light.
And light is truth.
And light is truth.
And truth is love.
And again,
love, light, light, love.
Again, it's the frequency of connecting with the intention, the purpose of truth to become it.
Mm.
And this is it's a round and round language, purposely said, but it's also
that's Ouroboros.
Right. But as we're releasing this, you really don't. It's just like it's already being released.
Yeah, I know. Now,
it's being released right now.
Right now.
Right. So, did you see something you wanted to share?
I was just looking here at when it was talking about kind of the root where it comes from. Caelum. That's very Kala.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
completed.
I know.
It's
just you can see where the roots of it are coming from, even in the ancient Aramaic Hebrew, into what they brought it forward into with Latin and Germanic and all of that. You can see where it's all come from.
Yep. So we're going back down now. You're going to have some inculcation here. So you're going to have some redundancy. So we're going back in celestial. Just say, okay, so I just wanted to say, okay, so don't lose sight. We're talking about the matrix. We're talking about the celestials. We're talking about the matrix. We're talking about the supreme being, the bright star, the clear and the shining, right? We're talking about what this is. This is the supreme being here being drawn to make a circle, to describe a compass, the horizon, the vault, right? And then we're going to go.
And again, just inculcation, that's part of the word for Chag, which is feast, festival.
Right.
The cycles of the feast every year.
Right.
Because that is the divine sacred wedding that is being rehearsed until we become unified as one, no longer divided.
Absolutely.
Oh, that's so amazing, man. Whew. Feeling it in the spirit right now. Yeah. It's like, whoa. Oh, and then we talk about Uranus and heaven, and we were connecting that with the Ouroboros.
Right.
Yep.
Okay, so then we can go back down.
And then the mountain. We've talked about that.
So we're
to raise and lift.
Again. And so now
and nasa, to lift up, which is the root for the Hebrew word naswin, which means nuptials, while you're in the flesh.
Right.
But it's meant to lift you.
Right. And so
how interesting that nuptials in the flesh, which is naswin, it's actually connected, has a fallen noon. But the original intent was to lift you up into the way of one.
Right.
Like, so when you just said the purpose of coupling,
right,
is through the maturation that is meant to lift us up. But it's really meant for us freedom of an expression in the fullness of becoming, aka the fullness of celibacy.
Right.
I'm just connecting dots here.
Yeah.
So that's the purpose of marriage, is to lift one another up, to enter into the oneness principle, which is a form of connecting to the celibacy part.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
The fullness of our becoming, where you have no need for another. Then you get to desire to be with them because you want to be with them for their company, not because you need them. Because they raised you up.
Yes. Absolutely.
So that you're no longer evil. You're no longer a child or an infant. You've been raised up out of that.
Yeah.
Seeing the purpose of connecting your heart through the instruction that each partner provides one another. Anyway, that's amazing.
Well, I'm letting you share because I'm looking
That's
for
amazing.
something as you're sharing. But yes, absolutely. But continue down, please. So we're talking now on that file. We're going into sharing about the Shamayim. So now we have, but we can't lose sight of that, because that the suffixual is talking about we're made of. Just so now we have ceruleus. So ceruleum is the blue.
Right.
The OUS, by the definition of the suffixual addition.
Yeah.
Now you're made of.
You are from.
You are from
the blue heaven.
No, for some people it's like, oh, of course I am. I know, but no, we need to know that you're more than from it. You are standing as it. You are full potential in earth. The only thing really missing is the resonance.
So in other words, you are celestial.
You are celestial or more, but the only thing difference is the resonance of the ayin that would establish it as knowing.
Right. Which is part of the yada.
Right.
Intimately knowing through experience. Because the ayin is in there. Yod Dalet ayin.
So now we have
the work and deed of the hand is so that you can know.
Right.
Yod ayin.
Right.
Know and see.
So now we have the Shamayim, which is the sky. Again, we're talking about the sky and the heaven, right? And this the sea. The sky and the sea are the same thing. Now I'm going into the precepts of this, because we have really the direction of intention. And so now we're going into Torah, instruction of law, because this is the law of the sea. The Shamayim the Torah is the law of the sea. The instruction.
Right. And so those who are seated above have gone through the waters and the fire.
Right.
Gone through the consuming fire and entered into the peaceful waters. They have honor, authority, and most importantly, character.
Right. So to move as the Shamayim, because we've already established the locus ceruleus is what you're to become. The sky is within you. The Shamayim is within you. The name and the mark of light and water, fire and water is within you.
Right.
The lofty measure of supreme deity, supreme being is within you, but it's held to a standard. This is where the high ensign mark comes from, the high mountain acclamation of becoming through the law's intention.
Right, and the most important part to put this into place and to bring it forth is you must connect to it within your heart.
Put in place, that is locus.
On the inside.
So now we have locus, right?
Right, put to place.
Put to place.
Right, is the center point, and the center known in Hebrew is leb.
Right.
Your heart.
So, right.
Lamed bet, the instruction on the inside of your heart.
The first staircase
is the center point.
The first step of any spiral staircase is in the heart. You have to have the heart pierced to make one first step.
So that center point that spirals around is really a straight line.
Straight line.
Plumb line.
Plumb line, yes.
Got it.
Yes. And we're going to go to the plumb line.
Dot connecting.
We're going to go to the plumb line here pretty quick.
Light speed.
That's what actually I was looking for. I was looking for the plumb line. Thank you for another connection, because I got to connect this. Let me go square.
So, I mean, it's really easier to see that than through that spiral, because the plumb line in the center from the place of origin, from the locus point, never changes.
No.
It's always center.
It's always center.
And so there's the whirling and the swirling that's around it, but it's always guided by the center plumb line.
Yes.
So the vortex that swirls and goes up still has the measured distance of the radius from the plumb line, from the origin start to the finish start, connecting both points back together in your string theory.
Yes.
Okay. I just like now that I can connect to you a lot easier than I used to. I would sit and scratch my head and you would share things and it would take me like months to connect. I'd be like, huh? I don't get what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
It makes
Yeah.
me very joyful on the inside when I can connect in my silly way with my little champagne bottle
Yeah.
or marbles.
Yeah. It's what did I just put that? Yes, absolutely. Yes, that's my strength center. That's how I see it. That's what that's how I connect. So continue down. We're into
Torah. You
okay,
were looking for the plumb line, but I guess we already talked about it.
well, no, we're going to go into we're going to go into the circle. We have to go into the sextant and to the square.
Okay.
So, but again, we'll just go through this and follow this because it's all speaks. I can find it. We'll see where this leads up. And as soon as we get to an hour, we're going to cut this off anyways, and I can always connect. But anyways, we need to know that the law of the sea is the mark of raising yourself in the revelation, right? So we have Tav, right? The mark of light, or even the mark in the signature on your head is based off of the revelation. That's Torah.
Right. And then Ra right here would be from the root meaning to see.
Right. So to see and to flow, because the root of
to see the light, to become the light.
So because Torah is from Yara,
Right.
which is the prefix to Yara Shalom.
And to shoot the arrow,
So,
which is the way of the arrow, is the path of the mystic.
Which is the path of the mystic, right. So now we're going into learning to swim in the womb of the waters below so one can be delivered, flowing as the waters of the sea overhead.
Mm-hmm. The waters above from the waters below, actually collapsing and becoming one.
Right. So now we've just joined waters and waters, and this is based off the cranium. And so now we have the word, because the locus coeruleus is, and we look at this even in the Greek, we have the word for skull, corona, horn, corno, right? And so now we have this word for horn, an animal, really as material. We're talking about corona, transparent.
That's cornea, from transparent anterior part of the eyeball.
Connected to the eyeball, right?
Mm-hmm. Which we already were looking at the word before about being able to see with
right.
Torah.
And so it's directly
to
connected,
see the light.
Directly connected to the cranium, to the Quran.
To the skull.
To the skull.
Yeah.
And we're going to break this.
And then Quran means horns, or to shoot forth beams of light.
Right. I find this interesting when we go into the cur. Look at this cur right here. And we're seeing, so the horn in the head.
Yeah.
And then it's talking about, because from the cur, it's connected to, in its place of origin, heart, horn, and we're talking about heart as a stag. And you can see down here, it's talking about a stag.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that that the altar of a stag is the arisen measure of authority. Now, I'm not saying anything against female or male. I'm moving beyond that to the spiritual connotation of having horns and not having horns. It's got nothing to do other than the representation of moving into authority. All have the ability to have antlers and horns. All of us.
Absolutely, because that is the Aleph.
I just don't want people...
In pictograph form, the Aleph is an ox head that has horns.
It's got horns.
So shooting forth beams of light.
But
authority.
A female deer is called a hind.
Mm-hmm.
So now you have the hind part versus the head part. So you have the feet again versus the Ouroboros is like, without the authority, you're the hind part. Moshe, you can't see the face yet because you don't comprehend the hind part yet. I can only show you the hind part.
Right.
So I have to show you.
When he was hidden in the cleft of the rock.
I can only show you a measure because you can't comprehend the greater measure yet. So I have to show you the hind part. I have to show you, you're going to get...
You have to see the Divine Mother first.
Right. You're going to need to see this first.
You have to see Mother first.
Right.
Because once you see Father and you know Father and you become to it, then you have your horns of authority.
Right. So really the hind...
Shoot forth
in the innocence of having no horns, the hind part simply is a measure of seeking the sum, the head. So we can take masculinity and femininity out of it and just say it's just a measure. It's really innocently just a measure.
Well, I do think that interesting, a quadruped. So when we look at quadrated ones, it's connected to being quadrated.
Right.
And we've connected that to the full four chambers of the heart. All hearted.
Absolutely.
Pun intended. Heart.
Okay, now we're going to get into some interesting waters here, and I don't know if I have the energy to do it, but we're going to see what we can get, because I'm really setting up. So we have this word, a cup, and it means heel, footprint, hind part. So we have the hind, and we're talking about the ayin kuf bet. So it's really saying that the fountain is based on the compression and building, right?
Yeah,
Really
right.
simply put, right?
Right.
Without going too far into Father,
No.
we can just simply say that to see and to know, become the fountain, is dependent upon what you're able to compress through the building process.
Exactly.
That's the hind part, right? So it's right there. It's saying, right? It's all right there. Light's compression is solely based on the blueprint of intention, David Solomon.
Right, but this goes right into weaving, right? Because you start from the ground up. You
Right.
go from the feet to the head.
Right. And so in the first occurrence of that heel, we are in Genesis 3:15, is talking about, and you shall bruise him on the heel.
Right.
Okay?
Yep.
So we're talking about a walk.
And how interesting that the Aleph Tav Hey is in that verse.
Right.
As you.
Right.
We'atah.
We'atah.
We'atah. You, Aleph Tav.
Right.
The letters of light and love
Pierced.
that will be revealed.
Right. As the pierced Aleph Tav, as the pierced of revelation, as the beginning and the end, you are.
The Alpha and the
right.
Omega.
You shall bruise him.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And so now we can take it to the root of the heel and achab, and we have to follow at the heel. Circumvent, overreach, to swell up, to swell out or up.
Oh yeah, well this is the root of Jacob.
This is the root of Jacob.
Yachab.
Because he had to
grasp the heel.
He circumnavigated his own circle to prevail as the circle, to become one that's prevailed as the circle, Israel. Because we need to look at circumvent, right? Because we're looking at the word. His name means circumvent. Circumvent means, right, to be around, to encircle, to surround.
How interesting! It also means to oppress.
Mm-hmm.
But he was catching the heel of Esau that was trying to oppress him.
Well, in the lesser narrative, he was.
I mean, it's all spiritual message, but yet.
But is that what it is? Or potentially, if maybe Esau already was a full measure, and he was protecting his head from a full measure? Because when you look at even what Esau was in the higher narrative of spirituality, in Father's renderings, Esau was. I'm not saying that he wasn't a character in Scripture, but yet I see Esau as something different now when I look at his name and the extrapolation out of, to say maybe it was a measure in representation to say, I am this already. You're going to have to protect it, because in this role model, the head is then become the adversary that will show you how to become. But you're going to have to protect yourself, because I'm now overstanding you, because I overstand the means of becoming. And so Esau, then they became twins in their wrestle, but there were already.
How interesting. What is that? The higher self and the lower self that need to join and merge as one.
They came out as twins.
Right, the tome.
They came out as tome, right? They came out as already a completed measure.
So higher and lower are adversarial to us in our process of becoming.
Yes, and so
because that's what we're wrestling.
And I want to be clear that in the lesser narrative, how it's been broadcast is Esau,
just as a story,
bad man,
right?
Jacob, good man, right? And that we're still living in duality.
But when we make it personal to us, we realize that's our own wrestle.
When we are able to extrapolate out through the additions and deletions of suffixual and prefixual,
right?
Additions and deletions, we see that another story is underlying in the deeper waters,
and it's about our maturation,
and it's about oneness.
Yep.
So that's how I can see Jacob and Esau differently.
No, that's good.
So we can see inculcation, circumvent, really to oppress, right? But we're also talking about, but the higher narrative of oppressing is simply for the means of becoming. Following at the heel, to circumvent, to become the completed circle. We're going to have to find out. We're going to have to get into some waters here. So Inculcations Feet, prepare the head, worthy of beholding the crown.
Mm-hmm.
This is just, these are my...
Wow. Right? Look what it's connected to.
Oh, right. Look what it's connected to. Cerilius. But we're going to talk about this. So we're going to talk about... So this inculcate...
Well, it's calcaneus, but yet I understand.
The crown, sorry. But we're talking about the heaven already. So we're talking about... So it's all connected. So inculcate is talking about treading down, to tread, to press in. And it's talking about, now this is where I put in here in the red. All the reds are my what my other studies have been. So this is where we get Achilles' heel, the only vulnerable spot. So the painful walk or vulnerability. And
Variability or vulnerability?
Vulnerability, sorry. What did I put in there?
Variability.
Okay.
Which is interesting because variability, they've just said that there's a new variance on the thing that's supposedly going around. I'm just not using.
Oh, yeah, we can take this out, but
No. But that is part of it because we're talking about the crown.
yes. Well, absolutely. Variables are directly related to your ability to subjugate yourself to the objective. It's a variable. A summation is based on variables. So being vulnerable is a variable. So maybe it's a Freudian slip. I don't know.
I think it was.
So below we have, where are you? So you're following. So anyways, I just see Achilles' heel as he was pierced in the heel with an arrow. So it's going like, boom, straight is the way. You're going to have to walk this way.
I bump something and it keeps going to Aliyah. I hit something, it keeps taking us to Aliyah. That's really interesting. No accidents.
Okay. So now we're going into this inculcation. So inculcate. Inculcation by definition is heel.
So this is connected to your walk.
Yes. To say it lightly. You cannot get to the head without journeying through the heel. You cannot become the completed Ouroboros, the moon and the sun, the mother and the father, without the definition of knowing what it is through the experience.
Right.
You can only get that by walking that. So we have tread down, to tread, to press in. And so now we're moving down to, and I think this is interesting because we're moving into the addar, because we're talking serpent language here. Now, the cockatrice. From its own definition, in Hebrew, zesfa, or zis, right? Zadi, pe, ayin, a viper, as thrusting out its tongue, as hissing, an addar or a cockatrice. Now, a cockatrice is a mythical beast, essentially a two-legged dragon or serpent-like creature with a rooster's head. It's read in Hebrew. I didn't add that. That bold cockatrice is in its own definition. So now let's look at cockatrice. We're talking about, is that fabulous? No, what is that?
That's fabulous.
Oh, okay. I was thinking of a fable. But okay, so we're talking about fabulous monsters. That's what I thought it was. So cockatrice, we're seeing a fabulous monster, right? And then Latin, it's from to tread.
I see that.
And then it's from to heel, a tracker. The wasp or sting comes from when seeking the definition. So now we're going into really. So now this is the cockatrice. This is the snake. You're journeying in the earth on your belly, and you're going to have to.
Well, you have to stand upon your 2 feet to walk it out.
So now we have this word from cockatrice. Now we're going back to the cranium here. Now we have heel bone, because now we're talking about, so the heel and the head are connected here. The bone of the heel, right? Now even the hip and the thigh, Jacob.
Right. So that's where he became disjointed and walked with a limp.
He walked with a sovereign limp that we know from the higher narrative.
Right, because that was after his name change.
After his name change became Israel.
Because he wrestled with Hillel.
Because he wrestled with a light being, potentially a seraphim.
Right.
Which would be a fiery serpent.
Right.
And so we have, a cockatrice, a flaming, a mythical, wonderful, fabulous monster, serpent-like creature with a rooster's head.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So now we're thinking of Quetzalcoatl.
Right.
A feathered lizard.
Serpent.
Right. Okay. Right. So now we're just putting this all together. So now we have Greek for cranium. So now we're talking about cranium again. So now we're going to skull, cranium, charis, horn, because that's what it's from. A horn-like projection at the corner of an altar. A horn of similar power in Greek.
Yeah.
And now this is all in the New Testament, Luke, the horn of salvation, having 7 horns and 7 eyes.
Right.
4 horns in the golden heads, horns, having 10 horns and 7 heads.
Mm-hmm.
So these are just the usages of horn. And now I want to go into the Hebrew, the whirling wind within, because we're already talking about what we've already broken down. This is a real lot of information, a lot of information. So now we have Quran. Kuf Resh Nun.
You know, what's interesting is it's the Ren that has a kuf on the front of it.
The compressed cry.
The compressed cry. Yeah.
The cry of light is within.
Yeah.
Quran. So when people say the Quran, they just say, hey, the Quran just means like it's light. It's a ray of light. It's a radius. The compressed radius within you is your cry. When you know the wren of the bird, you know that quickly is coming the sound that will peel off the husk, and you will become as the frequency
of light.
Right.
Of that which you compress.
Of Supreme Being.
Exactly.
This is what's coming.
Right.
So we have send out as rays. Well, that's the definition of radius.
Right, exactly. And again, this is when Moses came down and his face shone. It was from this word.
Absolutely.
And that's why, again, Michelangelo painted or sculpted.
Right.
Sculpted, chiseled.
Right.
Moshe having horns coming out of his head. He didn't actually come out with horns. He was shooting forth rays of light.
Right.
But because of not understanding the language, the representation was... Right. And maybe he did know. Maybe he did know that the horns represented authority and power.
Right. Well, whatever it was, that's conjecture. But let's focus on what we have before us. So yes, we don't know, but yes, absolutely, maybe he did. I'm sure that he had a radiance that looked like horns because it was emitting from his fleshy construct. So he had something a radius coming from him as a rod. It was probably extruded out as spikes. Could have been. I don't know. But let's look at this Golgatha. Gimel Lamed Tov. Just alone in that, we have...
Well, you know that Galgal right there?
Mm-hmm.
That is reincarnation.
Well,
that's what they believe, that's the word for reincarnation.
Okay. Well,
to walk in instruction, to find the mark.
That's why I'm showing that there's a law within us that allows us to go back to the eternal, back to the Supreme Being, that we are able to go through a veil to then either to come back in or to stay, depending on measure. So Let's look at this Golgatha, which is connected to sent out rays, Quran, right, a skull, right, and it's connected to, by implication, a head. So now we have, through inculcation, through the heel, we now have Golgatha, the head. Mm-hmm. They're all connected, right? The cockatrice is talking about the heel, but it's the authority that's risen as the head. Now we have Gagal, the primitive root, to roll away. Now, here's my whirlwind.
So gathering the twin instructions of light.
Gathering the twin.
So that you can be weaned and ripened.
Right, or maturation. Right. Full maturation is completely removing the stone. You've rolled away. Death is no longer an obstacle for you because you're realizing that you've been walking in death. What is now released to you is...
So it's the rolling away of the flesh.
Yes.
Suit.
The percussion and the sound.
That will release.
Tekalith.
Yeah.
The cry of the wren will release.
The roar.
The roar will release.
Poof.
Yes. The blue spot. The heaven is within you and it's about to be activated. That's what's coming. So now, based on proximity to 1538, that leads back to the root of 1556. So I'm talking about Galgal, right, in 1538, which is Golgotha. I'm looking at Stonehenge, consisting of a circle of stones or wooden uprights, really. But we look at really what it's saying there. It's talking about a memorial, a statue, a pilaster, obelisk, cross, megalith, right, circle, tomb, shrine,
sepulcher.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the word hedge is a back formation of Stonehenge. So we're talking about there's some information here. We can sum through it. It's interesting. It's talking about something hanging.
That's interesting because that something hanging, I'm thinking of dangling. That's dal.
Dal.
Dalet lamed, something that is dangling that needs to be tied down. And dal means to be weak and feeble as a poor man.
Right. So let's
And
just
thin,
so that
not fat.
right.
Spiritually.
Right. So something dangling.
Because the door of instruction is what's going to allow you to tie it down.
Right. Okay, so we're talking about hanging stones. Words from stone in Hinge, and my red edition sounds like a door, right? We're talking stone hinge, right? So we're
Right.
talking about we're talking stone door language here. So
that's totally in the definition of Dalit.
A door.
A door.
A door. Well, I'm just I'm giving people the opportunity to say.
People don't know this.
Okay.
I know this. Right. They don't. So I'm helping to connect dots here.
So we're looking at a 12th century word here that literally means the stone gallows, right? We're talking about an old style gallows with two posts with a second element related to the verb hang, right? So we're looking at crossbeam. So it's like we're talking the crossbeam of a door. The gate hangs in the balance of both support pillars, mother and father. We are the crossbeam, as Yeshua was the crossbeam.
So this is right, and also supporting in the air that which hangs in the air. This is bringing heaven to earth.
Right. So hinge. So now by definition, what is the hinge from this? A movable joint or a gate of a door.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And so we have Stonehenge really means Stonehenge means the stone gallows. Now I can think of many things. This is actually the hanged man.
Right.
In the tarot cards that I don't follow, but it's not spooky to me. But all it means is you're subjugating yourself to the object. You're subjugating yourself to the intention. You, by free will, you've allowed yourself to be turned upside down so you can find upside right. So now, even in Hebrew, 1537, Gilgal, circle of stones.
And like I said, this is the word that they use to describe reincarnation.
Right. The house of Ha-Gilgal. Now, this is where we're going to go here.
That's circle.
That's the circle. You are the completed. This is my point.
So the circle of the round.
You are the wheel in the wheel.
Right.
The Gilgal.
Right.
You have circumnavigated correctly to come full circle back to the circle as it never happened again, arising in the east as
Adam Kadmon, as it never happened. You are now of light. You're a wheel upon the wheel. It's the activation of the Merkabah, the light body.
Now hold on. Yes, good segue again. But remember, you're going back to as it never the full. You are the definition of Shu.
To turn back to origin.
You went back to the garden of origin. You are, because it's not just an act, you are the frequency of it. You are the garden. You are fully back to the state and stance of supreme.
The fire that has been built.
Right.
Shuv.
So now let's look at this word. So now we have Beth HaGagal, right? The wheel, Gagal, the wheel, the full returning, the circle of stones, right? So by the two pillars, by Boaz and Yakim, by the measure of establishment, you have become the established measure. You are now the quickening, right? So let's look at this word here. I found this really interesting. And we're almost done here, by the way. So the first occurrence, right? We're talking about the wheels of the cart, Gagal, the wheel, the whirlwind. We've already just said this is the whirlwind within you. The fire and the wheel and the whirlwind are you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Now, in this, so this Ezekiel 10:2, the wheel upon the wheel or the whirlwind upon the whirlwind.
And I can see that they've used it in King James, translating this word as heaven.
Right. So the face of the mother and the father are within your head if you have the heart to see them.
Yeah.
Beth Merkabahs, I have my mother's heart and my father's head. And vice versa. It's all the same. It doesn't matter. So now we have Bayit, right? A house. And shall pitch it within and without. Added mem to Bayit, right? Genesis 6:14. So you shall make yourself an ark of cypress wood, make rooms in it, and coat it with pitch inside and out with pitch.
Well, and that's already the covering.
Right.
Kafar.
You are the covering.
And that connects it to Solomon, David, and Solomon, because it was the mercy seat.
Yes, because you're building, you cannot become the benevolence without comprehending the acts of mercy. This is how you become judge advocate.
So then this goes back to the firstlings with racham, compassion and loving kindness.
Compassion, love, we can take it right back to the beginning. So you become the measure of intention, David and Solomon. You become love and peace together.
The beloved
You
peace.
become the supreme court. By the measurement of the court, you've self-adjudicated yourself, reasoned what is innocent and true to become the measure. You've freed yourself from the lesser narrative to become the completed intention. You have fully circumnavigated the course of intention.
Right, and so you are the judges and the gardeners.
So that's right. And so in the garden is in here. So now look at this word. We're going back to it again of what to cover yourself as the mercy seat. So now we're into Strong's again. Beth Haggadal, the house of Gilgal.
Bayit Haggalgal.
Right.
Gilgal.
Bayit, sorry. So now look at the occurrence of this. And I want to pay specific attention. So let's go down. Now these are similar. So let's go down here, but let's go just keep on clicking down till you get to the two blue ones.
I already know what the root of that is.
So let's go down a little further. First occurrence. Creating the horse and chariot.
So in other words, just so people know this is the plural form of Merkabah.
This is the plural form of Merkabah. So in this word for Bayit Hagandal, right, we're talking about
Bayit Gilgal.
Gilgal, sorry. What did I say? Ha Gilgal. Right. So we're talking about Bayit Ha Gilgal.
Right.
Okay. So the house, right, of the Gilgal. So now we're talking the house of the wheel and the wheel, Ezekiel's wheel.
Right.
And now it's connected to Merkabah in its definition. So now it's going a little further. First occurrence of horse and chariot. Now let's go into the Merkabah file. So
and it definitely is not a coincidence that it's 44.
44 occurrences.
Two paths of the 22 letters that become one, 44.
Right.
The Merkabah, the light bodies, the chariot thrones of the cherubim that have matured.
So now I put this verse in here, and this is where we're going to end, and we're just going to read it through. So, and shall be dissolved, but it's not wrought, because it's you're fully compressed. You're completely removed. Cal, completed. You've built as one. You're built as heaven. You are the Shemaim.
Yeah.
And shall be rolled up, wound up, and rolled down. You are completed as a scroll. You are the scroll, right? You are the book written of order. You are the ordered, right? You are a scroll with the mark. You are fully recorded. You are inscribed, right? As the heavens.
And to celebrate.
Right.
As being part of the Hashamayim.
Right.
The heavens.
Right. So now you're of completed and pierced.
Look at that. And their hosts.
And their host.
Mm-hmm. That's
Mm-hmm.
That's mother. A completed mother.
Completed mother, which is a father.
Yep.
Right? Shall fall down. Right? But we're talking about the fall from grace so one can journey to find the measure of grace. Disgrace is only a distancing from. Disgrace is only a distancing from. It allows the ability to find the definition through the experience. This is the innocent intention. Disgrace is but a measurement that grants opportunity to experience the reapproach of drawing near to grace, as it is the standard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's basically showing that word comes from a highly spiritual journey. Mm-hmm. To bring forth grace again.
Right.
To the spiritual journey that takes the Bet Lamed, the heart that's in the opposite order, the anxious heart, the heart that's full of anxiety, mm-hmm. in order to take and change the nature.
So then we're going.
So you have a leb.
Right.
And then when you flip this around, if you flip it around, the same gematria, and you put it in the right order,
Yeah.
it's Laban.
It's Laban, white.
And which is white, which is frankincense.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's why, I mean, seeing this for its black
like,
and white.
wow.
Oh, don't go too far because we
I
need.
didn't mean to.
Okay.
I didn't mean to.
So-
I just hit the wrong button.
So now we're going down. So now you're turning the nature, you're becoming completed. And falls the leaf from the vine as the fruit falling from the fig tree. We've already said what the leaf was.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's interesting
So that, that cough in the falling, it's grasping a hold of, right?
Mhm.
The power, but it also means to yoke.
Right.
To yoke yourself to the spiritual teachings so that you can build yourself through instruction because your heart is anxious and fearful.
Right.
So that you can reverse the order of it and become white. Laban, frankincense, which is the process of ascension.
And that's aliyah. That's we've already shared that earlier.
And Megan, that has to do with the fruit of the vine, which is wine.
Right.
Which is dam.
Mhm.
Because juice of the grape is also known as blood. It's the blood of the grape. It's dam.
So now keep on going because we have to follow the next verse because we have to make this congruent. We got to make it where it flows. I know you're almost done. You are done.
Oh, I was done about 15 minutes ago because we're like 2.5 hours.
Are we really? Oh, with the added. Okay. But just so we just need to connect this though, because with the next verse, it makes sense because you're looking at, so what's fallen is you're no longer the leaf. You've gathered yourself as the leaf. You're now the vine, right? Of the fig tree. So you're back to what we've already stated. They covered themselves with aliyah. They've now returned as the fig tree.
Yeah, and even in here in the falling part of it, it's bet tov, which means to be worthy and deserving because of becoming the daughter, the 222, with the instruction on the inside of you.
Right.
And right here, Aleph Nun Tav, different order, but if you look Memhe on the front, in the suffix and the prefix, right, is Aleph Nun Tav, gematria, which is the word made flesh.
Okay,
it's just connected in there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the fig tree is the word made flesh, and Ma is like, what is it? Well, the fig tree is the word made flesh. The answer is in the question.
Right, absolutely. So bear with me for 7 inches of screen here, please. And then we're going to end this. We can move on to the next file. So this is, we were just
on another day.
We looked at Isaiah 34:4. Now we're looking at Isaiah 34:5. So we just continued on to fill up this verse. So now let's look at this. So now we have key, right?
The key, which we were talking about, burnishing and brandishing, the key of grasping a hold of the power.
So shall be bathed, filled, full, and sustained. And
satiated,
right?
Yeah.
So we have satiation here, right?
And that hay would be added on there. You'd satiated through the Father's revelation and His teaching.
Right. So now, what is built? Heaven is now built, right? Shamayim
because the bet is in front of it.
So now built is heaven. So they built heaven. My sword, right? My sword is now built.
Right, which is part of Merkabah, different gematria, but
right.
Harab and Rechav, chariot and sword, same connecting.
So now we have an A, right? Behold the risen, right? Hayes on both sides with risen nature within. You built yourself in the flesh. All right. Now we have upon. Behold your risen. Upon, right? Adam. Adam pierced.
Right, because he has the Vav, he's connected to Source Creator on the inside.
So now Adam, this is now the east because it has to connect. This is now Adam Kadmon. This is now the pierced. The new Adam is pierced. It shall come down. This is tread down, right?
Yeah, and Yared, that means Mother's Covenant.
Coming down.
Her frequency will come upon the people.
Right.
The people that are humble and teachable,
right,
in their process of ascension.
Very important that be said because Mother's not, what's coming is Mother, but she's coming in humility and she will be administering the cure in humility.
Right.
So now the cure is coming down as the virus, right, or to the virus, right, humbly upon the people. my curse.
Yeah, but it's
But
karam, but it's also racham.
right, right. But if you comprehend this, the curse is the blessing. The curse in the beginning was only the means of direction to fulfill the intention. That
Isn't racham the loving kindness?
yes, that's what I'm saying. We have to overstand the curse. We think the curse as this negative dualistic thing. Well, really, it's going, oh my goodness, from this perspective now, curse and blessing are
Are
the
the
same
same
thing.
thing. Yeah, I see that.
So now,
Well, because it's meant to exalt you, room, and give you power.
so
So
what,
that which was once separated, you found life, you raised yourself up and exalted you in the power, because the resolve always comes in the letters.
right?
So when you see something, you're like, oh, that sounds negative. Well, when you look at the letters, it tells you how to reverse it.
But that's maturation. You cannot see
Exactly.
that
No, you
without
can't.
going through the due diligence of becoming
Right.
it. So now what's coming upon my people? Really? The blessing of the curse is reestablished. They've turned it upside down. The curse has now become the blessing for judgment, but really it's the righteous act, right?
Well,
The ordinance of self-adjudication.
so what's coming upon them is the staff of authority, because they went through the waters of chaos and they went for the consuming fire. Their mouth was pierced, the languages that reveal, and they struggled in it. And their judgment that is coming upon them is light.
Is light.
Because judgment also means completion. To judge through self-adjudication,
Yep.
one way or the other.
Right. And so let's just go down a little further to the, so what's coming is 2021, the Chariot.
And that's the year we're in.
This is the year we're in. And what's coming through resonance of comprehension is the completed chariots. They are the forged weapon. It is the sword that has been made in the earth by completing the circle in the circle of time. The chariot
you can
is
see
built.
that, the chariot of the Gilgal.
Yes, the chariot,
wheels.
the wheels upon the wheels are
Wheels.
coming in 2021. The fiery chariots are coming again.
And they will come and go, because they went through the process of ascension. They were given power and they emptied their cup of the lesser.
Yes. And we can leave that right there.
Shalom, shalom, and namaste.